you, Howard.
I'd like to call the November 7th, 2018 Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. We have need for non-public to do minutes and also under RSA 91A:32C reputation. Town Manager, you have anything else?
Yes, legal and personnel.
Okay, legal and personnel. Okay. We're going to...
Sheriff, had one other item I don't know if you want to add on to the agenda tonight.
Okay.
I don't know, is Mr. Ford going to come in and talk to us about the grader? Did he talk to you today at all about that?
He was inadvertently tied up on Center Street and the paving. We had a problem with the paving plant.
Okay.
So I have to tell you, he was very pressed for time today, and I don't believe he'll be joining us.
Okay.
Do we want to talk about it, or do we just want to hold up and put it on the next agenda?
I think we have time to do that still, don't we? With
You probably want to hear from him about it.
yeah.
Next agenda?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay?
Yep.
All right. Next item on the agenda, minutes. We've got a whole pile of them here. We've been very busy with budget hearings, so we're going through about 8 sets of minutes, so.
And thank you very much to our clerk who gets them in on time.
She
I don't know-
does.
I don't know how she does it.
Yep. And she does a good job to boot.
Yes, she does.
Okay, even though I make 10,000 changes. Okay, October 9th. Does anybody have any changes to October 9th? Paul?
I have one change. On, let's see, page number 5, under D, debt service,
Yes?
third sentence, Mr. O'Brien stated he thought the sheet, actually I corrected, it is understated the debt. I thought it was understood the debt. Never mind.
Okay.
Get it? Brain cramp, too many meetings.
Would you like to make a motion to accept as written? Oh, okay, you're going to second it?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, October 11th,
No, it's the 10th.
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 Okay. I have one on page 2, third from the bottom. It says, Mr. Sullivan stated it will show up on the line in the road upgrade, and I'd like warrant article to be this year. And the paragraph before that, I'd like to say, have it read, Chairman Murray stated that $50,000 for construction of Partridge Road, the Partridge Road project will be added to the road warrant article. And then page 6.
All right.
Let's see, we go from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Paragraph up from the bottom, it says, the chief, is this correct? Was should be taken out. Is this was correct? Just take out was. And 11 is the last one. 11. Okay, on the 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph down, that paragraph, the second sentence, we have invested in, and I'd like asset management software added. And I'll make a motion to accept them as amended.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, now we'll go to the October 11th. Does anybody have any corrections or changes? I do. It's the under new business, first paragraph after the first sentence. I'd like added, Ms. Morrow asked the board to allow Mike Hodder to speak first. And then we come down to the last paragraph, and the amount is $20,000, not $21,000. And that's also on page 2 in 2 places. So if you just go through and pick up that 21 and change it to 20. And then when we are the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph down, Mr. Hutter stated, if the program is adopted as part of the Park and Recreation Department, the board of the Wolfeboro Senior Center and Meals is the name. The Senior Citizens Club is another organization. And that's the same thing that needs to be the third paragraph from the bottom. It says, Mr. Hart had stated that the Wolfeboro Senior Center and Meals. And on page 12, and I'll need to check this with Mr. O'Brien, it's the first paragraph. He stated there is an allocation cost that the town is assigning to Abenaki. It's really the Pop Whelan Enterprise Fund. Are you willing for me to change that?
I am.
Okay, and that's the same change in the third sentence down. Okay, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. October 15th. Does anybody have any changes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next one is October 17th. Does anybody have any changes? I do on page 14, and I'd like on page 14, under 3, mobile data terminal E-ticketing, and I'd like after that a dash and the amount of $7,221,000 to be added. Well, we can do it on the first row. Why don't we do, Chief Rondo stated that the mobile data terminal and e-ticketing system at $7,221 are tied. When I went through, I couldn't find that amount. So this will make it clear what that is. Can I have a motion to accept as changed? Unless somebody has something else.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 18th,
That was a short one.
There's no changes. I'll make a motion to accept them as printed.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 24th. On page, on page 9, the sixth paragraph up, and it said, Ms. Morrow returned, and then I like the next sentence to say she asked for time to address the cut. And then on the third sentence, third line down, that sentence, I would like to say she can petition, and I think it was the voters. That's that page. And then on the page 10, there is, the last sentence says, Miss Morrow stated tomorrow she would write a letter to John McDonald. And then again on the next page, it says Miss Morrow stated she would write the letter tomorrow. I think we can just eliminate the second sentence. And then, let me go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 8 paragraphs down, it says, Chairman Murray stated we gave you $21,000, and instead of it, I would like it to say payroll services. But the town, and take out but, the town manager can do whatever she wants with the funds in the finance budget. Right? those are all my changes. Anybody else have any changes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain because I wasn't here.
Okay, one abstention. Okay, next item on the agenda, I'd like to, I'll read the public hearing notice. The Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, November 7th, 2018 at 6:35 at the Wolfeboro Town Hall, Great Hall, 84 South Main Street, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, pursuant to RSA 31:95E. The Board of Selectmen to consider the accepting the gift of the barn at Clark House Museum Complex with a value of more than $5,000. If there is anyone with disability needing any modifications and/or auxiliary aid to access the meeting, please contact Ann Marble, and it goes on, gives her number. This was put in the Granite State News on November 1st. It was posted at the Wolfeboro Library on October 31st and the Town Hall on October 31st. So I'd like to open up the public hearing. Do I have anybody here? Please step up and state your name.
Are we on?
You're on.
My name is Gene Deneau. I'm a director, the treasurer, and the archivist for the Wolfeboro Historical Society. We also have here, I'd like to introduce our president, Louise Horskin, and we have a number of our board members here. We're here to present the town with a gift of our new old barn. I'd like to briefly review the past 100 years. We have a 90-year relationship with the town and wish to continue that. The history of the museum complex started in 1915 when Greenleaf Clark, in his will, bequeathed to the town of Wolfeboro the grounds that the museum is now on, the Clark House, which he was living in at the time, and the square between the two Clark roads. In 1917, he actually donated it prior to his death. The town took it over. The idea was to establish a museum because the building dating to 1768 was 150 years old already. Nothing happened. The town was a little remiss, and he was, the rumor is he was quite upset and was considering taking it back because the town had not lived up to its agreement. As a result, a number of people, including Greenleaf Clark, in 1926 formed the Wolfeboro Historical Society for the sole purpose of creating a museum based around the Clark House. In 1927, the Wolfeboro Historical Society received a 99-year lease from the town to operate the building as a museum. They solicited donations. The town provided some money to improve the grounds of the park and the complex, and as a result, the museum opened in 1929. An interesting note, which you'll understand later, is that the early designers noted that there was very little space for storage, for archival work. The Clark House was quite small, built around a massive chimney for heat. Things went on quite nicely. It was opened every year except 1945. The next event occurred in 1959 when another forward-looking person, Alan Stevens, who owned Point Breeze, at the time owned the one-room schoolhouse in Pleasant Valley. It had not been used in many years, but dated back to 1805. An arrangement was made between the Historical Society, Alan Stevens, and the town. Alan Stevens sold the building to the town for $1. The Historical Society provided the funds to relocate it, and it sits on the grounds to the left of the Clark House itself in its present location. It's been there since 1959. The next event occurred by another forward-looking person, Don Hallock, who decided that it would be really good to take the old fire equipment that the town owned, it was in storage and falling apart, and create a museum around it. There was consideration of using the South Wolfeboro, the Monitor Firehouse, but it was in such bad repair that it could not be salvaged. As a result, a new building with approximately the same footprint was built in the site where the replica building is right now. We had a lot of help in that building. The Historic Society paid for it. However, an extension to that was included in the design, paid for by David and Christine Bowers, the very David Bowers who's here today, to house an additional piece of equipment, the Amaskiag steam engine, dated to about 1870, which Mr. Bowers and Christine Bowers purchased and had refurbished. Don Halleck was an extremely good craftsman, so he restored the 4 pieces that were owned by the town. That was the 2 original hand engines and 2 hose wagons that were used in the 1860s in the South Wolfeboro Firehouse and the Carroll County No. 2 Firehouse, which was located in the building just recently vacated by Citizens Bank. In 1982, the firehouse was opened and a dedication ceremony was held. Generally speaking, the buildings are all managed in the same way. They're owned by the town. The grounds are owned by the town. The Wolfeboro Historical Society has the management and owns the contents. Donations are made to the Wolfeboro Historical Society, and there are some exceptions to that. There are 4 pieces of equipment in the firehouse that are specifically owned by the town, and 2 pieces that are specifically owned by David and Christine Bowers and on loan to the town. The schoolhouse has an agreement between the town and the Historical Society that ends coincident with the 99-year lease, which is in 2026. Hard to believe we're already there. The firehouse agreement strangely has no termination in it. Everybody seemed to have missed that. Okay, fast forward, another forward thinker. Jim Rogers was the last of our presidents that was faced with the problem of jammed up equipment, jammed up archives, donations we couldn't exhibit. We needed another building. We needed one for almost the entire 90-year period. Finally came up with a plan, submitted to the Board of Directors, the Selectmen, Board of Selectmen, in 2006 to take a 1820s, probably 1824 barn that was scheduled for demolishment in Hampton. We bought the barn after the plan was approved by the Selectmen. We bought the barn, moved it in pieces up to the parking lot of the Clark Museum Complex, had a foundation put in and started work on it. 12 years later, and thousands of volunteer hours and $195,000, the barn is complete. We had our occupancy permit on July 3rd. Because we were allowed to start setting up the exhibits about 4 or 5 years earlier, we were able to open it on our next business day, July 5th. It's been open ever since. We've held 2 speaker events there, and we held a reenactors tea party. They were all very well received. We have a assembly permit from the fire department for standing a maximum of 201 people. If we use seats, the number reduces to 169, which is quite reasonable. We're here today to donate it to the town in the same manner as the other buildings. Just as another point, the management of the complex involves many groups, including the DAR, which takes care of one of the gardens, the one in front of the schoolhouse, the garden club, which takes care of the rest of the gardens, and of course the town, which maintains the gardens and the outside of the buildings. And we take care generally of the insides, except for things like plumbing and electrical services, which of course need licensed people. The barn is fully accessible, has bathrooms, ADA accessible in it. We have a video of the Clark House that we can show to people that can't go in the Clark House. What else? We've got a full sprinkler system in there and a full alarm system. Thank you.
I think that would make a very good article for the Granite State News. Why don't you transcribe it and send it in?
What did I just say?
No, it's very well done. Don Halleck, by the way, restored the train station also.
Yes. Very talented individual.
Okay, do I have anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak to this public hearing?
I remember when the town was approached at the 11th hour to approve of this process of acquiring that barn over in Hampton. I'm wondering, at that time, were there any conditions or any stipulations about accepting it?
I think the only, as I can remember, the only question we had or asked was that it go through the planning board, that it left us, and then that the planning board would oversee it, or planning department.
Also, they misfiled an application for mass assembly of 400 people, and so they weren't able to do that because they had no sprinkler systems, and that's what delayed it for all these years, was the misapplication.
And so, does the town have any options? I mean, is it a must accept? Or can it continue to be under the purview of the Historical Society?
Well, I think the Historical Society has agreed to maintain it as they have now. The town has not paid for all the improvements that Gene just mentioned, so I think if we own it in our property, I mean, I'm 100% in favor of owning it. I would see no reason not to, because we're not maintaining it, not painting it, not insuring it, we're just owning it, which is what they want us to do. If they didn't want us to do it, that would be fine too, but they've requested to have us do it.
At being there at the time, my understanding, and I'd have to go back in the minutes, was that once it was up, the town would take it over. That was my general understanding. Okay. But I'd have to go back and read minutes to know for sure, and I have not done that. Is anybody else? I don't think anybody else was on the board at that time.
So the town would take ownership of the building on those grounds. The town would maintain the exterior, and the Historical Society would maintain and run the interior? Is that, I mean, is everybody clear on what's going to happen here with this?
That's my understanding, that we will maintain it and have the same relationship that we have with the schoolhouse, if I understand it. And I would imagine, and I'll check with
Clark House.
and the Clark House, are they the same? They may be the same. Are we going to get a written agreement? Are you planning to get a written agreement with the Historical Society on this?
Yes, in fact, they want to consolidate all of the leases at that complex into a single document if possible, but because the legal budget was so burdened, I thought I would wait until after January 1st.
We could also probably, like that President Jackson did, we could probably advance the renewal of the 99-year lease just so they could say it's renewed this year. I mean, we can do that.
I think we should get something in writing so we all understand what the parameters are and
There seems to be something like a
my-
contract, some sort of a contract or some sort of resolution. Absolutely.
Yeah, we did submit a letter to the Selectmen requesting that all 4 buildings be covered under one contract, if you call it a contract, one letter of agreement. Right now, we have 3 different letters of agreement. Being as they're all expiring in 2026, that's just around the corner. We'd like to get one new document, establish a new lease for all 4 buildings. And in answer to your question, the distinguishing between inside and outside maintenance is a little vague, because if you have to replace a door, that's both inside and outside. And we work with Parks and Rec right now. The museum complex is under the jurisdiction of Parks and Rec, and we've been working with Christine to establish on a yearly basis for some time now the work that has to be done. It's not an expensive proposition when you compare it to something like the Libby, where the town has major repairs and a lot of salaries. We just aren't in that sort of situation. And we generally take care of small repairs ourselves. The barn being newly constructed shouldn't really have much in the way of inside problems.
Do I have any other member of the board who'd like to answer a question? Brad?
Yeah, I just actually more of a comment. I'm in favor of this. I think, you know, the whole thing should be put together as one complex there. I'm in favor of that. I think we should probably do it in steps, like it said there. I think we should probably, if the board agrees to tonight, to accept the gift of the barn, and then next year possibly rewrite the entire agreement between the town and the Historical Society to maintain it as one operation there. And I think at that time we could also address, as Mr. Bowers said, the possibly, you know, renewing or extending the lease at that time too. I don't know necessarily if we have to wait till 2026, but if we get this all put together into one document, to me that'd make a good time to address that at the same time.
I agree with that 100%.
Paul?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to bring it all together. You know, the alternative is you break it all up, and that's probably not the smartest thing that you'd ever want to do. I think we talked briefly about this, Madam Chairman, at a prior meeting, and I believe I asked the question, whose department is going to be responsible, and what's the ongoing operating expense going to look like? And so is it Parks and Rec, Town Manager? Ongoing operating expense?
Yes, there's a minimal expense.
I think that's, you know, that's one thing I just personally would want to make sure we're all clear about is we want to make sure that the building, the grounds, everything is as it should be, whatever we want to define that to be, as it should be. We want to keep it that way. We want to make sure that it doesn't fall into disrepair, it doesn't get ignored. And if there's any near-term expenses we have to generate, I'd like to know what they are. If the answer is it's de minimis, then I'm kind of along the path that says let's get all the contracts lined up, let's put it all together and move forward.
I can answer that question. We've been working with the various Parks and Rec directors forever. Louise and myself meet about every 6 months and more frequently as required with Parks and Rec. And they have been very responsive to things like repairing woodpecker holes in the buildings, calling a tree surgeon when required. When one of the storms took down tree branches in the yard, they do the mowing and take care of the leaf cleanup without any problem, and spring cleanup as well. And she has a list of the items that need repair. I can think of just a couple. They do take care of shutting down the water in the Clark House. They turn it on in following years. That's a task which is going to be a money saver once the barn is under town control, because we now have the proper bathrooms in the barn we're going to turn off the water in the Clark House. It's no longer needed.
I think I remember seeing us with a budget line item for exactly that.
Yeah, and she's put in budget items for the work.
Yeah, and we also know that you've got a sprinkling system, I think, and an alarm system that added, and they were line items in the budget, and we as a board talked about them as we went through. There is an issue. At some point, the exterior of that building is going to need to be painted, and we had a estimate of about $6,500. We didn't feel that we could budget for it this year, but we know that that's one of the things that we're going to need to do, because we can see some of the paint peeling, and I don't remember that there was any other large maintenance items on that. Does anybody? So I think that gives
There are
Suzanne,
some, excuse me for interrupting, there are some older items on the list that Christine has, including the siding on the schoolhouse.
Yeah, but we're accepting the barn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
No,
I'm
there's
looking at what is added. We've already got
No, there's no others
those.
on the barn.
Yeah.
She's been very cooperative in reviewing the items that need work and taking care of them.
Does that give you enough, Paul?
All set?
Okay, anybody else? Suzanne?
Again, I'd circle back around to, I hear Parks and Recreation have taken care of the facility or the site. I think the board, I would request that the board think about setting down some parameters as to who takes care of what. That the buildings are a valuable historic asset. I can remember being on the budget committee going round and round for a few years about the replacement or repair of the fence that goes around that building. We chose to do it a little section at a time. Your assets management plan, the building should fall directly under the real estate of the Board of Selectmen. The grounds should be Parks and Recreation. They shouldn't be fiddling to fix a door or open a window or what have you. And I think you need to set these parameters down in writing, in part to get the Historical Commission off the hook, because there's a lot they can't do. Once we take that building, we've really got the complex. It really is a lovely complex. It's not just, I would request and would hope that you're not thinking about just this building, although the public hearing is to accept this building. But in that, I would hope that you'd think of the broader picture when you're talking about renewing this 99-year lease or something. You lay it out very specifically. I also remember with the Clark House, what we went through about the foundation of having that all done, and the brickwork and so forth became quite an expense, quite a chore of who was going to do what. The Board of Selectmen, it's your charge, and I think that whether it's a resolution or a contract, you need to set out your parameters now that I expect you'll accept the building. I have no problem accepting the building. I think it's an asset to the community, and it's nice to have a little mini historic village for people to visit. It's very lovely. But I think this business of Parks and Rec, they're the grounds. You're charged with the real estate, and I think you need to make some sort of written, I don't know, Becky could figure out what the agreement would be, but I also know in other towns, they go round and round, pointing fingers, who's going to take care of what, and well, we said we'd do that, and you're going to do that, and it's under this budget, it's under that budget. So I would please wish that you'd consider straightening all that out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne.
My name is Charlie Horskin. I had the pleasure today to witness a presentation that Louise did at the Wright Museum to the Lakes Leadership Council. And one of the things that was really, really very interesting after the presentation was people talking about the treasures that Wolfeboro has in terms of museums. The Boat Museum, the Wright Museum, Libby Museum, and of course the Clark Complex. And it is one of the things that does bring a tremendous amount of people into the town. It's a resource that I think is a very, very valuable thing. And I just think that this particular group, the thousands of hours of volunteer work that went into this, they really need to have your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak at this public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do any board members have any other comments? Mr. Bowers?
I would like to make a motion that we accept the schoolhouse with an agreement, as Suzanne has suggested, that we accept it subject to our approval of the review and the wording in the review between the two parties.
Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
I think you want to moderate that. It's not the schoolhouse, it's the barn.
It's the barn at the
The
clock.
barn, change that to the barn.
Okay, I'll second that one too.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We accept your gift.
Thank you.
All righty.
Mark Lush, I give the tours there. When was the last time you folks came to visit?
I was there with the community facility
This summer.
this fall.
We'd love to have you come back and visit.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the bulk vote. We have 4 manifests. We have a property tax abatement and refund and a yield tax levy. Does anybody have anything on the bulk vote they'd like to remove? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept the bulk vote?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the treasurer's succession plan. Becky, this one's yours.
Yes. I presented the board with a packet of information and a cover sheet explaining that our current treasurer has served quite a number of years for the town, and he would like to retire. So he is very helpful, but he doesn't really want to run for election this year unless there's some contingency plan that might follow that. And that would be, if he did run, he would try to train somebody between now and then. And when he felt that person was ready, he would resign. And so we are in a bit of a pinch because we don't have a deputy. The person who was doing deputy functions now is not a town resident, so they could not assume his duties if he were to become ill or incapacitated in any way. So we should work toward resolving the quandary, a little bit of a quandary here.
I have been doing some thinking about this, and at the polls on Tuesday night, I asked Gene Leone from Leone and Bigelow, who was retired, whether he'd be interested or knew anybody who would like to be town treasurer. He did not want to. And then Scott Smith came in, who is a former town treasurer. He left office in about 2006. He had at least one term on the budget committee, and I asked him if he knew of anybody, and he said, yes, I would love to run for that office. I had not run because of John Burt. Scott Smith understands New Hampshire municipal law. He is a finance director, and I think he would be a wonderful replacement for John. And I am wondering whether even John might appoint him ahead of time, because it is the town treasurer who has the ability to appoint under our approval. So I was very pleased to hear that. I don't know how the other board members feel or how they'd like to go. So I will start next with Dave. Senecal, do you have any comments or way you'd
I
like to
didn't
go?
realize that Scott Smith might be interested. I certainly would back him. Having worked with him previously when he was here as finance director, and I believe he's still in Somersworth, isn't he?
I think so, but I didn't answer
He lives
that.
in Port Wayland.
Yeah, I didn't ask him that question, so I didn't want to say that he
Pretty
was
sure he's
still
in
there.
Somersworth.
Are you saying that he's a resident of Somersworth?
No, he's a resident of
Resident of
Wolfeboro.
But he works in
Some
Somersworth.
Yes. Dave Bowers?
Well, I have not met him, but I hear nice things, and I'd be very happy to endorse him. If Becky and the board like him, I'd go along with it, but I would like to have him come here in person, maybe talk with the board.
He can run in March. I would think that that would be a discussion that he might have with John Burt first, if he wanted to be the deputy beforehand. He may not want to. He may just want to run.
Weren't we trying to avoid change the town treasurer from elected position to an appointed position?
That is not, Becky had suggested that, but that was because she was afraid there was nobody going to run and we didn't have anybody qualified.
How do you feel about that now?
If you have someone who's serving as a finance director in another municipality, they certainly understand what a town treasurer needs to do. What I was concerned about is, for example, the current treasurer is not permitting the finance director to view statements online, and that would be handy. I understand why he's not doing that. It's a computer security issue, and but given the modern age that we're in, we would like to also take over that responsibility. And so the quandary is, if you don't have someone who's cooperative and they're an elected official, there's very little oversight. That's not where we are now. We are in a very good place right now, except that we need a succession plan. We need to move along. And so, yeah, I would support maintaining an elected position if this person of such quality and caliber is interested.
Brad?
Yeah, I really like that idea. I hadn't heard that Scott was interested. I had met him before when he was here working. I wasn't an officer or anything then, but I did know him, and I think he would be great for it. And if he was willing to, sit down and talk with John about, running and stuff, and transferring over, learning into what John's been doing, and so we have a smooth transition, I'd be all in favor of that. And I personally still like to keep it as the elected position here, like we have now. Keep it in that type of system.
Paul? Don't drink it now.
Well, the first thing is I think we thank John Burt for what he does, despite how he does it. Sometimes he does it, as you would say, probably not in a contemporaneous way, but he gets the job done.
Yes, he does.
I guess, and this is my business background speaking, there is a separation between the treasury function and the financial function in an organization, and it's done for good and proper purpose, and I'm sure that good and proper purpose probably ports over to municipal government as well. So there's a firewall in there, and you want to make sure you keep that firewall appropriately up. I think John has a duty, even though he's an elected person, he has a duty to try to find a successor. It's a succession plan issue, and I think that's something we would ask John to do. I've never met, and if I have, I probably don't recall meeting Scott Smith, but if we have a competent person who understands municipal government, understands treasury functions, and happens to work in town, well, that's a good guy and good person, and I'd ask John to go sit down, buy coffee, figure out if this is the right person, and then and Becky, I think then you get into that one too, because at the end of the day, you got to coexist with this function, and I think that helps. And there may be other people that could come out of this conversation. So for those of you out in the public, if you have a need to work hard and understand treasury functions and really understand that stuff, cash flows and all of that, then That's something we definitely want to look for. I'm pleased to hear that we don't want to just, we don't want to do the, let's not elect somebody, let's go find somebody.
No.
'Cause at the end of the day, I mean, I was asking myself the question the other day. John Burnt was elected. John Burnt's a good person. We found a good person to run for office. And, we're probably going to find another good one to run for office, as long as we're clear about, we're a big town now. We've got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of moving parts, and I think we have a need as well as an expectation for a very competent treasury function. So long story short, I would absolutely support John and Becky trying to figure out if we have a deputy treasurer candidate, and let's see if we can get that person appointed.
Yeah, that's where I am, and I'm with you, Paul. I believe in the division of power and checks and balances, and I like the idea of having two independent eyes look at the town budget, which we are sending a $27 million proposed 2019 budget to the Budget Committee, and that's a large sum of money. The treasurer shall take custody of all the town money belonging to the town and shall pay out the same only upon the order of the Board of Selectmen, and then there are 3 or 4 other funds that, and I'm not going to mention them all. The treasurer shall account for all sums received into and paid out of the treasury. Each year, the treasurer will make a report to the town and to the Department of Internal Revenue, and the treasurer's books will be part of the annual audit. So there's plenty of oversight all over the place. I feel that a good way to start is to reach out to Scott Smith and see if he would be the deputy first, and that would give us a transition he's planning to run. So I think that might be a good solution for us and give you some of the stability you would like to have in that position.
And if I could I just say one more thing? So I think our finance director has capably pointed out that, we've seen we've had some conversations about working capital, which is the balance between current assets and current liabilities, and we want to make sure that's always kept in balance. We've had conversations about the need to make sure that our cash flows, what we're getting out of operations, how we use that from either investments or from other resources or sources. I think those are good conversations. I think the treasurer, the deputy treasurer, that's in their domain. And I'm glad that we've had the conversations, but I think we want to kind of move it over and have a person that kind of worries about that stuff, because that's their job, and that would be very helpful. So enough on the point.
Anything else in that? I'll give you a going, and Pat Waterman should have his telephone number and stuff if you need that, and I'm sure John Burt knows how.
A pleasant surprise.
Yes, I was just asking, and then all of a sudden he said that, so I thought, all right. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Christmas tree sale at the Clark Complex. We don't have anybody here. We do have a letter. It's one of their major sources of fundraising. Over the last 20 years, they give out scholarships. They help support youth at the NIC, the Boy Scouts, and numerous other local organizations. This year, they will have their trees delivered on November 20th and 21st, with sales beginning right after Thanksgiving until December 22nd, or when they are sold out. The sales take place Thursday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Festive lighting along the picket fence and display banner facing Main will be installed as in prior years. And they're asking the Board of Selectmen to support and allow them to do this again. They have always checked out with the Historical Society. So does any members of the board have any questions or concerns? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
Move to approve the Rotary Club of Wolfeboro sale of Christmas trees per their memo to the Board of Selectmen dated November 2, 2018.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next item on the agenda is the extension of the contract with Granite Hill Municipal Services, and I'm going to pass this over to the town manager.
I would request that this matter be tabled until the next meeting, as the DRA has a review period that will take a couple of weeks.
Okay, can I have a motion to table?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Dave?
We need 5 lines for signatures, not 3.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Next item on the agenda is the operating budget. Becky, do you want to speak to this at all, or do you want us to just kind of mumble through?
Well, I did prepare a summary sheet. The increase is significant. We are in an inflation economy, I feel, and things have changed. There was a time when the customary increase in salaries was 1%. Inflation this year is over 2%, closer to 3%, and it's reflected in everything from ambulance, medical services, contracts to wages. And so it will be a difficult budgeting year this year, I feel.
Does any board members have any comments? My one comment, and this is to the public, it is the Board of Selectmen's, in my opinion, responsibility to put forward a budget that addresses the needs of the government and running. And it is the job of the Budget Committee to take that budget and make it a budget that the taxpayer can afford. So they've got to balance the two parts. I would have liked to have gotten the budget down lower, but when we spent, I thought, a huge amount of time wrestling with this budget this year, and the final decision was to send it over in its state that it is right now, and let the Budget Committee wrestle with some of the issues that brings this budget up this high. Does any other member want to make any comments? Okay, so I need a motion to send the proposed Board of Selectmen 2019 budget over to the Budget Committee.
Moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I was just going to say, do you want to, say what the numbers are out to the public so they know?
Oh,
But,
would you, sure.
I mean, we probably should.
Okay.
Numbers are down.
The subtotal on the general fund is $14,378,883. And when you add in the enterprise funds, I think, let me see if I'm right. Okay, that is $13,934,191. And so the amount that is going to be on the MS 737 is $27,340,249.
$672. 6.7.
Yeah, I have 5.2 increase over last year. Pardon me? 6.72% increase.
6.52.
6.52.
6.5% before union wages.
Okay, here's that one. Old business. Other business. The only other business, the Board of Selectmen each Board of Selectmen is going to be going at different times to the Budget Committee, and I believe we still have the 27th of November open for somebody to sign up for. If not, I'll cover it, but if anybody feels a need, feel free to let me know about that. Town managers report.
I would just like to discuss what I alluded to earlier, which is the complications with getting pavement laid on Center Street. And as you heard me mention, the plant was down, and you have to have hot mix at a particular temperature in order to successfully put down a base coat and a wearing course. And we were not there with the rain in the last few days. The first sunny day, the plant breaks down. So we could use a little bit of luck and some good weather. I'm not sure either is really working in our favor, but we remain optimistic.
So if the plant doesn't get itself back up, we will have to live with that one section of dirt?
I think DOT is going to make us temporary patch pave. They do now for all state route projects. So we have to do something, I think, but the quality will not definitely be what it should be, what we were expecting it to be. And so we would have to resume paving in the spring.
So does that add expense to our project, or will DOT take on that expense?
It depends on what happens to the price per ton between now and then, and no one has a crystal ball.
I was just going to say that on the paving part, if you have to end up going with a temporary paving, that would probably, more likely, that's something that's going to end up being removed in the spring to put the final base coat down. So it'd be, like I said, it's a temporary to get us through the winter, but yet not have the gravel to drive over, plow over, and all that kind of stuff. And I think any of those contracts with the state are signed with any paving with the escalation clause. Obviously, this is going to have paving done next year in it anyway, with the top going on and everything. So I don't think that really is going to affect the price at all of what is going on with the project. So.
I think we're all paved except for the driveways, right?
No, there's a section from about front of Dunkin' Donuts down to going in.
Up to the mini golf, right?
Oh, that's what the dust was.
Yeah, and then I
Dunkin'
think
Donuts
it's that
tonight.
intersection and stop somewheres in Irving somewheres.
I think that's pretty tied in there. When they put the curbing up, they're also going to have to base pave between the existing pavement and the face of the curbing, which is more handwork type work there. What they'll do is the curbing is going in. I've been down by there at all, but I assume that's been going in the last day or so.
Curbs all in.
Curbs are in.
Curbs in? Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
And a lot of people ask, you just laid pavement, and why are you going to dig it up in the spring? So that's a good, important point. And that's because it's not meant to be permanent pavement. It's of a very low quality.
If they do the temporary, yeah.
Yes.
They do the temporary. Okay. Anything else?
I think that was the highlight of the day.
Okay. Committees reports. I'll start down there with Paul and come forward.
Railroad Committee, Railroad Building Committee, been there. Energy Committee ongoing both at the master plan level as well as the actual Energy Committee. I spent some time, is this where you can talk about what I've been doing, other things?
Sure.
Spent some time with the superintendent of Kingswood as well as the Lakes Region VOCTEC leader. Just trying to understand, how we can build better bridges between the tech community that they're trying to build and the tech needs of our town, so that was good. And then, my favorite thing has been the budgets and budget meetings, which I'm going to start tomorrow night with our good friends at the Budget Committee and go through all of those as well.
Dave Senical.
Yeah, budgets, elections, master plan, meetings, pretty much the same as what Paul's been going through.
Brad?
Yeah, we've also been limited at some of our outside meetings, all the budget meetings we've been having, as everybody heard through the minutes we approved tonight. We did have a Wolfeboro Community TV meeting in there about a week and a half or so ago, a couple of weeks ago, and that was it. I did miss the Libby Museum meeting because we did have budget meetings that night, so.
It seemed to be, we did some double booking too.
And the elections yesterday, too.
Yes. I did go with Becky to the railroad station and meet with Pella Windows, and we should be getting some kind of a quote on that. I don't know whether we're going to, it doesn't look like we're going to move forward at all with that this year. I went to a railroad station meeting. I went to the October Candidates Forum, which was put on by the Chamber, and I thought that was a real plus for the community to have an opportunity to get out and hear the candidates. The CIP is finished. That has been many meetings, and that's moving forward, and this board got to spend quality time together yesterday at the elections after spending quality time on budget hearings. Dave Bowers.
I've attended the meetings of the board here and on budgets and the election.
Okay. Questions from the press? That's going to be hard. She's not here. And
Is it on TV?
yes, she had something else. She'd written me, Alyssa, that she would watch it, the video. Do I have any public input? Suzanne?
Make it positive.
Just a question relevant to that road section that you're talking about, 28 there. What's going to happen to those beautiful big slabs of granite, given that DPW has always said to us everything on the outer side of the fog line is a town responsibility?
There you go, white line to white line.
What?
White line to white line discussion.
Fog line.
Yeah.
The white line, fog line. Are those our granite pieces, or are they the state's granite pieces? They're beautiful pieces of granite.
My opinion would be, even though we have that system there of maintenance of fog line to fog line, the state still owns the right-of-way out beyond there, so anything that's in there is still their property and ownership. I think when you have leftover materials out of a project, I'm not sure which ones you're talking about, if it's pieces of the granite curbing and stuff that were stockpiled there that didn't get reused, if that's the granite you're talking about.
Yeah.
Those would probably, my opinion would be, those would probably become the property of the town.
Good.
But that's an opinion, I'd swear to that.
Because well, I saw what they're putting in is kind of a modern, clean cut, industrial cut pieces of granite, which don't appeal to me personally, but those big pieces of granite, I'm sure we can find a use for those somewhere else in town, like maybe around the docks or around the parks or whatever. And they cost a lot. I mean, I've been putting steps and stuff in. They cost a lot of hundreds of dollars each. It costs a lot probably to move them, but
I'm sure that's probably identified in the contract that the town
well,
and the state has, so.
yeah, I hope they just don't give them to the contractor, because I know we had an issue with Witten Bridge, and a landowner down there and some granite, and DPW just said, oh, it's too much, just let them have it. And I had a fit, because I'm saying, no, that's beautiful granite. But just, can you keep an eye on and see if we can have them, if they're ours, and stockpile them somewhere?
Are you referring to new granite or
No, the old granite
one? Oh, yeah.
curbings they
Yeah, there's
took
some
up.
real nice, big.
They're humongous.
These are like, they're in front of PZ's property. These are like 12, 13, even longer sections of old, rough granite, hand-cut stuff that would look really pretty, and down on right over there, and maybe down at the railroad station, and
Yeah,
just different places.
Use them all around town, and if you can't use them around town, I know you could sell them to people.
I hope
Nice
someone
job. It was
gave
his
some
idea,
thought to that when the
Or at
contract.
the Libby breakwater, this is reusable stuff.
Sorry, I hope someone gave some thought to that use of the old when the contract was drafted.
Right.
The contract will prevail.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, I think what we're saying, we need to look into that.
Yep.
And then just one last item about roads. I was just down to the master plan committee meeting, and I don't know why we were talking about roads, probably because of the congestion. And the old Yankee Way with the old town road agent system where I came from, just kind of a hillbilly kind of thing. But he had a policy, he would never engage in a contract that was going to lay pavement when the leaves were about to fall. He used that as a guide for the temperature. And simultaneously, some of the plants close anyway. But, I mean, it's something for us to remember, being through this experience now, about having, for our own town roads, when leaves fall, we don't want to be doing, according to the old Yankee.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience? Nope, I don't see any more public unless anybody, nope. Can I have a motion to go into non-public session?
So moved.
Okay, yes?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Thank you.